Hey everyone, welcome back to all the $1 million plus Kickstarters in 2022 Rankin' 'em edition. We are in the second half. We are going to be going from number 15 up to number 1, what I think is the best game out there. And I'm basing this, if you missed the first one, you skipped it, you were the smart one, you realized, listen, I'm not going to listen to Chris talk about all that crap games out there. I'm going to wait until he talks about the creme de la creme. Well, thank goodness you're here. We're going to be talking about the games themselves. I know in a lot of these campaigns, which I've covered, many of them in a 5 Reasons You Shouldn't Back This campaign, I focus on the counterpoints. I focus on the points which maybe you should think about before purchasing the game, which maybe you should think about this one central mechanic to it, and if you like playing games that are like this. Those sorts of things. But in this one, I'm going to talk about my personal preferences, how interested I am in these specific games, and why. And you can tell me why my opinions, as usual, are the worst opinions on the internet, and I would love to be illuminated by your amazing opinions. So let's get right into it. Number 15, a surprising addition to this list because of the don't consider the price and shipping rule. We're just going to talk about the gameplay. And for me, the gameplay of number 15, Elden Ring, looks pretty fun. It does. I gotta hand it to Keyforge Games. This one does look pretty good. It's stupidly expensive, and no one should get it because of the price, but I see why it did well and raised £3.291 million, over $4 million US. I get it. I think Steamforge has put out something that could be really fun. I like how you're going to be exploring the lands. I like that if you're engaged in a combat in the land, and this is going to be a rehashing of the 5 Reasons video. I know it was fairly recent, so I'll try not to continue to talk about it. But I do like that if you're engaged in battle, your friends can just keep on wandering and exploring the land because you have to be efficient with your actions, trying to find that ultimate boss battle, and then working within the confines of a more interesting lane battling system because you're choosing your stance and how you're going to navigate, basically what bonuses you get. And I like that each aspect gives you a little bit of a bonus, and you're going to need those bonuses to take on a boss. I don't like the price, but again, we're not talking about price here. We're just talking about the game itself and how interested I would be in playing the game. And that's why Elden Ring gets into the top 50%, because I do think it would be fun. And honestly, I think I would enjoy this gameplay more than the next two, but I would enjoy owning the next two more than this one, if that makes sense. Well, because our next two I could play by myself. So we'll move on to number 14, Sleeping Gods 2. This time it's not Sleeping Gods 1. The next chapter in Sleeping Gods, which is different from any expansions you might have had in the Sleeping Gods. Sleeping Gods is a large narrative, expansive game, and a game that people have really enjoyed because of its narrative scope. It's a big choose-your-own-adventure book with some game elements to it. And I think this will be the better iteration from Sleeping Gods 1. I know there was a little bit of talk in Sleeping Gods 1 about the efficacy of the characters or managing all the characters, or if they felt different or not. And I think that they will feel more different in this second version of it. Plus, you've got a plane. You got a plane instead of just a ship. So you can obviously zoom around the world a lot more effectively than if you just had a boat. This one raised $2.081 million over on GameFound. And I'm sure part of that was because you could purchase the original Sleeping Gods here as well. But I think gameplay-wise, I think Elden Ring would be more interesting than this. But I would be more interested in owning this based off of the acclaim from the first Sleeping Gods. I've heard really good things about it, and know that people really, really enjoyed it. So that's a bonus for it. And also, I could play this by myself and probably would want to play this by myself. I don't play many games by myself, but if I were to get my hands on this, I would specifically try to play this by myself. And with that mindset, it perhaps becomes a little bit more manageable or more of a possibility of delving into. And I think the artwork's good. I've never played a game by Ryan Lockett, but I know many people who enjoy his stuff, and so would be really interested in trying this out. Although I think I would still be more interested in just playing Above and Below, or Near and Far, or Now or Never, or any of the other this or that Ryan Lockett would come out with. before these ones. Again, because that sort of choose your own adventure, it's a long investment if the story doesn't grip you immediately and if the mechanics aren't fun. So I believe they will, because I know it's based on the backs of a good system and a well-acclaimed system. So that's why it's sort of up here too. Not necessarily with the FOMO, but just based off of good reviews, right? People enjoy this thing. And so that's why it's number 14. Number 13 is also a game that I would play solo. And I'm excited that it's gotten so far up the list. For a non-solo player, this should speak volumes, no pun intended, about this game. And that, of course, is Final Girl Season 2, where you can get many different volumes, different packages, mixing and matching the different games together. That will give you a villain to face, a scenario, or rather an area to take place in, and a final girl to fight both of them off, both the land and the sea. The sea stands for a rude word to represent that friggin' villain that's trying to murder everybody. I think mechanically, Final Girl really intrigues me. I think there's a lot of great things going on, and the only mark against it, for me personally, is that it's a solo-only experience. I don't play games solo. I never have. I might get into that at some point in time. And realistically, if I had a larger place where I could afford to leave something set up out on a table, that might help me become a solo player, right? That I could just go and spend 30 minutes a night plunking away at something in my own little hobby corner and not having to maximize every square inch of space because I live in Toronto. Yeah, but Final Girl looks fun. I love the amount of variability that it provides. Again, it's a series that's been very well acclaimed. And I just like the little dice rolling checks that you get to do. I like that your skills are dependent upon how well you roll, and there's that randomness to contend with while you're still navigating around the map and getting the hostages and balancing getting all the hostages, the victims. This isn't a reskin of Hostage Negotiator, no way. Getting all the victims and leveling up your special power too feels fun. And not knowing the health, the final health of the enemy is always kind of an exciting moment, an exciting climax to the film. So yeah, number 13 happily is Final Girl. Moving on to number 12, this is a big box campaign. This one again is by Steamforge Games. Final Girl having raised, what did it raise? $2.078 million. A little over that at 1.597 million pounds. 1.937 million, so not over, actually under. We're going to give it to Steamforge Games. Number 12 goes to Euthia Resurrected. Resurrecting Euthia. This feels like a fun big box campaign-ish game. But you can play it co-op, you can play it competitively, you can play it solo. It's an open world fantasy RPG game, and the story hooks me in for this one. It does. I like that it died and then it came back. Honestly, I think with Euthia, this is one where the FOMO is still lingering on me. And I think it's higher than it should be based around the FOMO of me just wanting it versus wanting it for mechanical reasons. I like the concept of open world games, but I don't necessarily know if I enjoy them in practice. I'm trying to think of any open world games that I enjoy. I don't know if I have many, to be honest. Maybe that's a blind spot that I'm lacking on the shelf. But this feels like a big RPG scratching itch, and might scratch the RPG itch better than most of the games of the past year. And I think that's why it does get a little bit higher, because it's so focused on that open world exploration and the RPG elements to it. Yeah, I don't remember enough specifics, honestly, about this one to be able to justify it being so high up on the list. And that's a bad thing, right? That's a bad reason for it to be up high, is just because it looks pretty. But I know that's the reason. I like that there's so many elements to equipping your hero. I think that's really exciting. I don't really remember what the battles are like. I'd have to go back and remind myself on them. I thought I did. And then I got to this point and I was like, oh yeah, wait a minute. You're just really relying on the FOMO. And so Euthia's snuck its way into number 12, not based upon gameplay, but really more based upon the FOMO aspect. But I'm fine with it. And I'm not going to take the time to go look it up, because I think we can all learn a valuable lesson here. And I don't want this segment to continue forever. I have a minimal amount of time before, well, I have to go to sleep and or pick up Renee from book club. But this is interesting. When you're thinking about previous games, really try to check yourself. or I should remember this for myself, if you check yourself of what specifically excites you, right? What specifically about the gameplay excites you. And if you can't come up with like 3 to 4 tangible reasons, then you're clearly just waiting for it based upon it looking cool. And hey, that might be enough to get it to the table when it arrives, sure, whatever. But yeah, just an interesting thing to hit. I gotta go back and look at that now. But I think it would stand around this area. Maybe it would drop a little bit more. Maybe it and Elden Ring would switch places, honestly, because I can remember tangible details about Elden Ring's gameplay, and I don't remember as much with Euthia. And I did this around the same time as Return to Dark Tower, and I remember tangible information about Return to Dark Tower, right? Those are kind of key information as to how well a game sticks in your mind and how much you're falling into the marketing and the story. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And that, luckily, was, I think, my number one reason you shouldn't back. So I'll listen to my old self and move along to number 11. I'm trying to justify my number 10 being over number 11 right now. And I'm trying to justify it on a gameplay basis. And I don't think I can, so I've got to make a swap. My number 11 has to be Castles of Burgundy, the special edition. That was going to be number 10, but it is number 11 and has to be number 11 because I own Castles of Burgundy. And this, with the Vineyard expansion, does not give me enough to make me want to play more Castles of Burgundy. Sure, it gives you all the maps. I only have the basic maps, but I can also play this on Board Game Arena with all the other maps and get that variation there. I think Castles of Burgundy is a very fun game. I don't think it would make my top 20 or top 30, but it might be in the top 50. I think it's solid. I really enjoy the puzzle that happens. I'm excited for it to be in the World Series of Board Gaming next year because I would have a great time commentating on that. I think you get some really good commentary looking at the board and seeing the order in which people take their moves, which I constantly forget when I'm taking them and then go, I should have looked at my opponent's board, and then I would have been able to stop them. It's provided some really fun moments on Board Game Arena when I've been playing it recently, where that happens, and I go, okay, I'm going to take that thing next, and then it always gets taken from my grasp, and that's exciting to me when those sorts of things happen. And it's just a big fun point salad game that moves fairly quickly, and yet I always have a good time with. I don't know if I have a raucous time with. I'm not going to cover myself in honey and roll myself around on Castles of Burgundy tiles. I still think it's a fun game, and I think this special edition is going to be great for a lot of people. The Vineyards expansion looks fun. It looks like a fun addition, but it doesn't seem like a needed addition, and that to me would be the only reason to get it, because it would be getting all this extra stuff, this stuff I hadn't had a chance to get. And I don't need this extra edition. But if you don't have Castles of Burgundy, well, you should still just get the regular base edition because that's fine, and you would be paying like a quarter of the price for it. Sorry. Now moving to number 10, this is Spirit Island expansion, Nature Incarnate. And the reason it's got switched just now is because I also really like Spirit Island, and I had to put aside my repulsion for the campaign and my repulsion for their weird, dumb marketing tactics and actually focus on what I would enjoy getting more. And I think I would enjoy getting more content for Spirit Island because I do like Spirit Island, the base game, a lot. I don't think I have played it enough to warrant any expansions for it. I don't even need extra spirits, even though I know they would be friggin' cool. I know I don't need that sort of stuff. But the base game is so satisfying that I have no doubt that this expansion will be equally satisfying, or almost as satisfying. I think I like Spirit Island better than Pandemic. I find it about the same skill level, honestly, for me. But there's a lot more moving parts, and I think that's why I like it, because I enjoy things with a lot of moving parts that I have to juggle, and I have to kind of parse my way through and figure out which I should be spending time on and which I want to just be spending time on because they're cool. So yeah, Spirit Island is a great game. Again, this is a retail purchase. You have no reason to purchase it in advance other than paying shipping yourself when you could let a store do that for you. Now we've hit our top 9, and I almost made another quick switch just now, but I'm going to leave it as it is. So it's close between this one and number 8. But number 9 is GameFound's last campaign. Well, let's see how much each I didn't talk about how much everything raised. Castles of Burgundy raised 2.9 million euros, $3.1 million. Spirit Island raised almost $1.2 million. It was 1.99. And then moving on to Keyforge, Winds of Exchange, with that $1.1 million raised. I didn't expect this to be on this list, and I'm thrilled that it is. And I think that thrill wants me to push it a little bit further up when, in essence, it's still just Keyforge. Keyforge, though, is a fun game. It's a really good implementation of that two-player head-to-head dual monsters.
So it's just
category.
like Duel Monsters.
Yeah, see, beat you to it. One that I think is worth playing. When I covered this, again, I thought it was too expensive for what it is, and I mistakenly said that something got hacked, and I said the wrong thing. I think it was the algorithm itself that got hacked in terms of producing these sorts of randomized decks. And the key with Keyforge is you're going to get a deck of cards, and it's a self-contained thing, so there's no deck construction here, but it will exist on its own merits, and it'll have 3 different classes in it, and on your turn you can activate one of those classes and play them or activate them and attack. And you want to get these 6 little gems, which you can turn into a key, and the first person to get 3 keys wins, basically. Like any good key party, you don't just want 1 set of keys, well, you want 3. I'm almost saying, oh, but it's only a little bit lower. But 9 is really good. To be 9th on this list is really good and should speak to the quality of Keyforge and how much fun I do have when I play it. It's not at the top because you want to have a few decks to keep it fresh, and so that lends itself to that sort of buying cycle. But I think when you have like 6 to 12 decks, that's all you really ever need. You grab a random one and you try to figure out what's the best way to interact with each other. I know Zach really got into Keyforge a while back and was picking up a bunch of decks for cheap. And I think that's the way to do it. If you can pick up a bunch of decks for cheap, it's well worth playing the system if you like those 2-player battling games. Again, a little bit lower for me because of that 2-player constriction. It's not always going to get played, but it's a fun 2-player game, and just talking about it kind of makes me want to play it again. So that's why Keyforge is number 9. Really close that I almost made number 9, but edges Keyforge out just slightly is Unsettled. Unsettled is that big system by Orange Nebula. It raised $2.053 million, and it has its base box and then a bunch of different planets that you can go explore. And each planet is its own little puzzle. And so you want to figure out the planet, figure out how to survive on this planet, or you die. You lose all your limbs, and I get them. Unsettled has a really fun humor to it. It's got a really fun world to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I think that's one of its greatest strengths. I like the exploration aspect of Unsettled. I like that each planet is different. I don't like that from a buying standpoint, but I like it from a playing standpoint, right? I like that they have invested into this system, and each is going to provide its own little puzzle, and you can explore the world and flip over see what the orientation of the planet is that time around. I'm not convinced that there's going to be an enormous amount of replayability within these planets. I'm still not convinced of that. But for someone who hasn't played any of them, I think it would be a fun time to go out and to play them. I like managing different action points. I like the sense of trying to hold on desperately for survival. And I'm very intrigued by games that have this core system and then implement the variability, like Final Girl and Unsettled, this trend of just plug in and play these various elements. I think Final Girl's variability is going to be, and replayability is far superior to that of Unsettled, but this one I can play co-op and potentially play with other people, so that edges it up a little bit. And the humor of the game resonates with me. It might not resonate with a lot of people, but some people might find it a little too glib, but I like glib. They call me Studio Glibly over here, and this is one that I would be excited to try. Moving along to number 7, this one is the most funded of the year, and my personal number 7, it raised $9 million on Kickstarter, kicking off the year with an incredible bang, and that is Marvel Zombies. And I think I would like Marvel Zombies. I think Marvel Zombies is going to be a fun game because I think Zombicide is a fun game. I think the hero version of Marvel Zombies would be more fun for me versus the zombie version, but I think it's the same system, right? It's the exact same system that all Zombicide is based off of, just with a little tweak. This little tweak doesn't intrigue me as much as some of the other little tweaks. I think the Undead and Alive tweak, that was number 3 last year, I think, when I did this ranking. I think having a train is a little bit more interesting than having random mutations instead of items. I think the key draw with Marvel Zombies was all the minis of your favorite superheroes as zombies or heroes and looking cool. And I get that, but that wouldn't have been the draw for me. The draw for me, honestly, is that it's Zombicide, and Zombicide is a fun game. That's what propels it up to these sorts of heights, because rolling the dice and munching on a bunch of zombies or potentially taking down a bunch of citizens, I think is always going to be a good time for me. It would be hard pressed for me to have a Zombicide game not in the top 10 just based around how much I enjoy that system. Sometimes it's just fun to chuck dice and level up, and that I think is exactly what this is. So moving along to number 6, this is a surprise one to me, but it did cross that $1 million bar. It raised 1.027 million euros, and that is very, very recent. Potentially the last, probably the last one funded on November 22nd. So maybe not. It might have some competition, but this is Unconscious Mind by Fantasia Games, which is a studio that brought you Endless Winter. This one looks really good. It's a nice chonky Euro where you can do a lot of different things. You've got your own little private rondel where you're upgrading actions on your own board. You've got another area of the board that you're managing where you're getting different patients. You've got patients that you have to cure with your hypnotism. Yes, because Freud loved hypnotism. You're being a therapist, right? That's your whole shtick. But they're cloudy with grief, and you're going to say, hey, listen, you never even liked that person anyway. And they'll say, wait a minute, you're right. I didn't. And feel better about themselves. There's a little place where the more workers you commit to a certain action, the better that action can be. So there's a lot of fun moving parts, and I think this one's just going to be a blast in terms of it being a fun Euro experience. It was a little bit on the pricey side. I didn't back it, but this is one where if somebody pulled it out, I think I would be actively excited to have it, and I could see wanting to have it on my shelf just based around the inner workings of the mechanics that it's presenting. Potentially another solid hit by Fantasia Games. I haven't tried Endless Winter yet, but when I went to go check it out, it had a little thing that said, here, check out the rulebook right at the top of the page. So you know, obviously, I was going to be excited about it. And that brings us to our top 5, the top 5 campaigns of the year. It's getting increasingly harder for me to say no to adding these to my collection. And one that still could pull the trigger on, one that I won't be purchasing for any of you dummies because you didn't make enough fake accounts to get me to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not. That was my deal. I was going to purchase it for one of you, but there will always be other giveaways upcoming. I think once I hit 10K, maybe I'll do my top 10 games finally. I haven't done that yet on this channel, and I did it the other day just for myself, and it was fun. So maybe I'll do top 10 or top 20. You can't just do top 10. You got to do top 20, right? Anyway, I'll save that for when I hit 10K. This is a game that raised $3.23 million, and that is Oathsworn Into the Deepwood, the reprint campaign, the second edition. And this does look fun. The main thing that does draw me in here is not the campaign itself. It is the manipulation of your cooldown of cards and how you can make your cards cool down a little bit quicker so that they pop back into your hand and you can do that same action again. That's what's really exciting about me. That's what's really exciting about me, if you didn't know. No, that's what's really exciting to me about this game. That's my tangible thing, right? And what puts me off is the size of it, the size of the campaign. I don't need another one of these boxes. I know it's going to stick around for a long time because everybody talks about it. It's going to make a play for being number 1 on Board Game Geek, I am sure. It's so popular that it doesn't even say late pledge, it just says be told when it's available again. We may have missed out on the late pledge, so perhaps I was a liar with saying I was going to late pledge because I assumed that it would be, they'd be holding the doors open for people to run through it. I do like the dice, too, that you try to see how many successes you can roll. Or you choose how many dice you can roll, but there'll be a penalty if you roll certain things. So it's a little bit of a push your luck battling aspect. It seems like a fun game. It seems pretty slick. It's, again, really well reviewed. If I didn't have so many campaign games and wasn't burned by Tainted Grail, well then maybe I would delve into this. But at the same time, I'm skeptical that it is going to be the best thing ever because, again, it's focusing, or at least the best thing ever for me, because, again, it's focusing on that narrative campaign. They say there's a lot of good story elements to it, and I just don't care about the story. I care about the actual things that I get to do and not the journey that they want to take me on. Anyway, that moves us to number 4, which raised $1.876 million over on Kickstarter. Well, it's all Kickstarter now. We left GameFound BackerKit behind with Keyforge, and this is a deck building and negotiation game, or rather 3 expansions for one of those. Moonrakers Titan. You get 3 different expansions for this, plus a 4th free one that they put out that was online. It was a co-op expansion. This is by Ivy Studios, and they are behind Veiled Fate. And this is part of the reason why I am excited to try this game. I know my friend Reed decided to go all in for it, so I will be playing this with him for sure. But Veiled Fate was so fun, and I think Ivy Studios seems like they're great at taking a concept and then bringing it above the table. And if you're interested in above the table interaction, I think you can do some fun things with Moonrakers as you build your deck and try to take on tasks. And my favorite thing about this, and what does get me excited about it, is that if I'm going to complete a task and I'm going to ask for your help, we can negotiate what you get from it. So it's not like we split the rewards, because you're at 9 points and I'm at 7. So I want all the points, but I'll give you 2 cards, 2-card draw to help me with this. But you have to take all the risk. And that's the sort of negotiation that can happen when you get to the end. And that idea feels very exciting to me. The expansions seem well thought out as well. There's one that adds a bunch of cards to it. There's one that adds a little mini map on it. There's one that, I can't remember, so obviously is horrible. No, I think it's the best one. Does it let you trash cards? I think it lets you trash cards. No. Oh, there's one about faction, gaining faction reputation. So it gives you a few extra abilities, ways to kind of clinch that end game by calling in your saved up points, basically. But yeah, Moonrakers looks great. I've heard really good things about it. I think Ivy Studios' production quality is really well done. I think they forced that upon you, but if you like a premium product, I think you're going to get it with Ivy Studios. And it just looks really good. So Moonrakers is one that I almost pulled the trigger on, but it was the premium components being forced upon me that made me not do it. I felt that way with Veiled Fate, that it's very premium, but I think it could be cheaper and you'd have the same experience. And I also think of Veiled Fate, they should remove the art design, which adds a little flecks of dirt to the cards that you think you're going to be scratching off and removing. Literally every single person that I have played has tried to scratch dirt off of a card that doesn't exist and is part of the art design, and is so stupid, Ivy Studios. Luckily, it's a space theme here, so I'm sure you don't have any of that. Yeah, Moonrakers looks really good, and it's my number 4 for a reason. My number 3 is probably one of the most unique blends of things that I've seen in a long time, and that makes me excited. It raised $1.45 million on Kickstarter. It's by Leader Games, and that is Arcs. And the meld of what it does is trick-taking and action selection a little, because whatever card you play, you're going to start the leading trick almost. I'm going to play a card and I'm going to set the suit for everybody. And people can play and follow suit and get better things by doing that, or they can not and potentially try to trump it or not trump it. And you get varying levels of efficacy of your action depending upon your card play. And this just seems very exciting to me. I love trick taking. I do. Euchre and Bridge especially, has a very solid place in my heart. And then bringing that idea of forcing people's actions, because you know what actions they're using, and also maintaining control of when you choose to lead the actions or not, or when you win the trick, and the balance of, do I win this trick, but then I have to spend my special action, my better action that's worth more now, and I might want to save it for a later time. I think this gives a really interesting give and take that I think is exciting and I believe will have been really well thought out. On top of that, you have this whole area control element where you're going around various sectors in the galaxy and fighting for control over there. You can see the computer. Why are you sitting there? Sit here. Yeah, so that one seems pretty fun, and that's why it's my number 3. Now, number 2, come here, you're my number 2, aren't you? Number 2 is probably my most disliked video of 2022, even more than Slippery Jim's April Fool's special. This one might be my most liked video because Artie's being a nice boy and is finally sitting next to me. And there I jinxed it. But that's because, okay, bye. Yeah, my most disliked video because people who are obsessed about video games are often the scum of the internet and don't understand how to read past a title and understand context. And so it is with that I'm attempting to get back into their good graces by putting Deep Rock Galactic, the board game, as number 2. This one I think is going to be just pure fun, and I think will capture a very similar fun like Zombicide, but is in a new take on the genre. So therefore it shoots up for me because it seems more innovative. It's something a little bit more fresh, and I want it more than just another version of Zombicide, right? On your turn, you can do a number of different actions, and your goal is to run around the mine and mine a bunch of gems and get better equipment, and then get back home for a sweet little dwarf beer before you have to run out and do it all over again. You can run out and help pick up your teammate after they've been attacked by a space bug. I'm so fired up about Deep Rock Galactic that I decided to change my shirt and hat. Or really, my microphone transmitter died, and it did record a backup on this, but I figured I would just talk about it and wrap the video up again, because that ultimately would save me time. Doesn't matter. Deep Rock Galactic just seems like a heck of a lot of fun. You've got the 3 actions that you can take, and all of the options feel viable or feel like things that impactful tools in your tool belt. And I think that's what I like about the game. I like that it does feel that way, and I think this system feels similar to a Zombicide system, but you don't have a bunch of other Zombicide iterations abounding to take away focus from it. That's why Marvel Zombies is at 7, and this one is at number 2. So hopefully I've done enough to convince the video game people that I do love Deep Rock Galactic. I can't stop talking about it. Days later, I'm still here to talk about Deep Rock Galactic. It just looks like a blast, and talking about it, makes me want to pull the trigger. But I don't think I need it. I don't think I need another big box game that feels like this, but I think if you don't have a lot of them, I think it will be very well served by the IP, and I think it'll be a fun time. Which brings us to our number 1 on the list. Number 1 Kickstarter board game campaign that raised over $1 million in 2022. There were some really good contenders here, but the one that ultimately I couldn't stop myself from backing has to be the number 1 spot, and that is Cthulhu Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown, Season 3 of Cthulhu Death May Die, and Season 4 was there too. I didn't back Season 4. I want an excuse to back Season 4 so I can have even more mounds and mounds of content, because 2 big boxes isn't enough for me. You know I want at least 3. And the reason I did end up backing was numerous fold. I don't know how many reasons. We're going to find out together right now. 1, everybody who talks about this game has seemed to really enjoy it, and enjoyed it to the extent that they want more content for it. Now, I don't know if that necessarily means that it's not replayable enough, or that people are just really enjoying the system and want it, but it just feels, again, in that same dice chucker genre that Command does so well. This feels like it would hit it on the head. And I don't really have any Cthulhu games. I mean, I do have Arkham Horror, which, yeah, it's up there, but that's pretty much the only Cthulhu game that I have. And so I don't mind the genre. I think the genre is pretty fun. I love that you are insane, that you're legitimately, you start insane and you just get worse. I like that it's kind of in 2 stages, that you want to raise up the Elder God just so you can punch it in the face and make sure that it doesn't awake later on down the line. It doesn't matter if it's sleeping, it could wake at any moment. And so you, as the brave explorer and investigator that you are, you decide that, yeah, I'm going to wake it up and punch it in the face. And I love that as a description. So obviously I'm on board. And I like the variability of the investigators. I think the variability of the investigators feels a bit better than a Zombicide variability of a hero, but I might be mistaken in that. And I decided to ultimately pull the trigger at the Kickstarter level because you get those additional episodes. You get that additional content, And CMON is generally good with their additional content, and because it's only at that $100 level and it's not the $110 level. And that to me feels significant. It feels like they're going a little bit lower, potentially on prices, because they need to earn some goodwill back from all of the colossal screw-ups that they've made over the course of the year. I'm assuming, because, you know, you can point in any direction and somebody will tell you why they hate CMON. But I don't hate CMON. I like CMON games. They generally land really well with me and my game group. I like the plastic. I like the amount of stuff that comes with them. And I think their approach to stretch goals is still generally pretty good value. And I got in on a group buy, so I didn't have to pay like the $50 shipping that it would take to get to Singapore. I got it for like $10 to $15 shipping, and that amount feels very manageable compared to the amount of extra content that you do end up getting with these games. So I'm excited to delve into the system, even if I didn't pull the trigger on Season 1 at the retail level. I'm trying to refrain from pulling the trigger of Season 1 at the retail level since I do have this coming, and not really go overboard on all of the stuff. But if it gets here and I do like it, then I'll be able to pick up the other stuff at retail as well, which I'm very excited about. So that's it. That's my #1 game that raised over $1 million on crowdfunding this year. Thank you everybody for watching. What was your #1 game? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know your top 5. Let me know your top 29 of games that raised over $1 million and the order. No, don't let me know the order. Just let me know which ones they were. The top 29. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being here and staying with me. You're all incredible, except for my nemesis, formerly good friend Josh, but now evil nemesis. You're all pretty good. But you know what? There are some exceptional Joshes in this community that have restored my faith in the name Josh. So at least we have that as a Christmas miracle. Yeah, so let me know down below which ones I got right, which ones I got wrong. Again, I do always love hearing from you. It helps me not be sitting here in this void by myself, but I get to talk about cool things with you. And I always do. I read every comment, obviously, because you're very meaningful to me. I may not have the time and get back and end up responding to everything, but everything that you do ever write, even if it's gibberish, is incredibly meaningful to me. So thanks. Anyway, my name is Chris George. I still do not have a catchphrase, and at this point it's just ridiculously embarrassing. But I will tell you that I got this little ornament here, this Dobby ornament. Yeah, there he is. This Dobby ornament as part of my girlfriend's stocking stuffer because she took a very in-depth personality test. One where you sort of self-assess and then compare it to traits that other people assess. It was by a psychiatrist or something. I'll see if I can remember. I can find it. It's actually a fun one to do. And her #1 on the short version was Dobby. That is the fictional character who she is the most like, Dobby. And then when she took the long 170 question version, well, she got Moaning Myrtle instead. So Merry Christmas, one and all. I hope you're all free elves. And I mean, this is after Christmas, so have a Happy New Year as well. I'll see you in the next one.